All right. All right, awesome. So we got everybody on
More
here.
light, less light. More cowbell.
More cowbell. Okie dokie. All right, so welcome everybody to our training today. So I know that we usually have our kind of annual training back usually in October when the new data standards come out, but luckily HUD decided that we weren't going to have any changes this year. Yay! So they're probably going to hit us like with the gauntlet this coming year with new stuff they want us to add. So each year we have to do a training for our HUD standards and our NOFA. Just to say, hey, we got everybody in the room. We went over different policies and things like that. So glad everybody's here. Glad we have representation from all agencies. So if you are the representative from your agency, because everybody couldn't attend, please make sure you share this information with those who could not attend so that everybody understands what's going on. If you're here in person, you do get a credit training hour. Yay! We are going to have a little more excitement, Andy. Come on now, a little more. So we will have an assessment at the end so that y'all put in the different things that we talked about. You can have a cheat sheet. So you can refer back to all these documents to say, okay, well, I don't remember what this policy said. So the way I'm going to know if you actually watched this or not is because I have a code word. Okay? So code word actually is going to be a number. It's 32 because today I'm 32 years old. Yay! Ugh. It's harder and harder to get out of bed every day, everybody. Come on now. So that's going to be the code number is 32.
We have a question.
Oh, okay. Melissa, we have a question.
Lauren wants to know if you're not in person, do you still get a training hour?
Yes, if you make sure that on the chat box that you put that you were here, that's kind of like your sign in. If you did not sign in, then you are not here. So you have to either be present here and sign our sign-in sheet back there. Because remember, I'm getting old and I can't remember who was here and who was not. So either sign it back there in the back or put your name in the chat box to let us know you were here and you will get credit. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions before we begin? All right. Oh, Lord. And for those who are still online, we are still having more people trying to get into the webinar. So once again, if you are in the same office, please huddle around each other and watch it together so we can get more people in. Okay, we've never had this problem before. All right, so Melissa's going to take it away with some policy and procedures. Everybody's favorite. Yay! Yeah.
Okay, so I sent out an email on Friday. If you did not receive it, you can also go to MACH's website and the policy and procedures are available on the website. Okay, so what I basically did was make some slides with a breakdown of each section of the policy and procedures so we could briefly review. So this is letting you know that in the state of South Carolina, there are 4 lead agencies. So MACH is one, ECHO is another, Upstate, and the Low Country. So those
are low country.
Yeah, the low country. So those all represent the 4 continuums of care in the state of South Carolina. On the next slide, it kind of goes through, so those 4 continuums meet twice a month or bi-weekly with 2-1, and we are responsible for any major changes that happen with HMIS, such as policy and procedures, updates to the system, anything else?
Basic system problems, because we never have those, right? Hit last Friday.
Yeah. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay. So this section just covers that each of your agencies has an agreement with MACH to use HMIS, and it goes over how we enter in the data standards. Sure.
Just to let everyone know, one of the reasons why we're going through this so specifically, and hopefully you'll read, is that we did have, as HUD has released new data standards over the years and has provided new guidance. We did we had pro bono work done by Nelson Mullins attorneys to make sure that we were in compliance, that the language in HMIS policies and procedures match what HUD's looking for, and that also the information that we're talking about, if you're implementing it, means that if HUD comes out to look at any HMIS systems, then we want to make sure that we're in compliance with what they're looking for. So that's why we're going through this. A number of things have changed. Language has changed. It's made it a lot easier, I think, to figure out who's who in the policy and procedure manual. So if you hadn't read the policy and procedure manual, I encourage you to do so. But that's one of the main reasons why we're going through this information, is because we had it updated. It was just finalized and just being rolled out. So there's a new policy and procedure manual for HMIS.
This is access to HMIS. This is the outline of how to gain access. So user IDs, one user ID per person, no exceptions. If you are new to HMIS and you are trying to get online, you will need to contact Helen, or your supervisors will need to contact Helen to get you online. You need to have a signed agreement to participate. Your agency must have a request put into through the website, which we're going to go through a little later in today's training. All new users need to complete a training prior to having access. So service point application, data quality, security, and privacy. Those of you who have been through it, you know that Helen gives you a training and then kind of gives you a individual client, has you go through some steps, then you submit it to her, and then you get access as long as the clients were done correctly.
Correct.
So you're also going to assign a request for a user ID. You're going to complete the privacy questionnaire, and you're going to complete the code of ethics. Sorry. If it pertains to your agency, if you have a subcontractor that is entering data, we also will need to collect a separate agreement from them.
Yeah. And for
I have a question. So for the signed agreement,
yes.
I know when we met with Helen to do the training, we signed. Now, do we have a copy of that? Is what you're asking here? Should we have a copy on file of that agreement? Or
I know Helen keeps the copy on file.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because what you do is that you initial each of those statements, and then you send it to me directly. So you should keep a copy for yourself, and I have a copy on file too. And I hold it electronically and the hard copy as well. Yeah. For those of you who are planning to get interns for the fall, we are going to, with the help of Olivia, since she just spoke up, Olivia is going to help us, man this. Is that we are going to have a training session, hopefully like 1 or 2 training sessions for those interns block week. Because that way we can get everybody in at one time and we're not having 20 million different trainings. So what we're going to do is that we are working with University of South Carolina and some other universities to come up with some good training dates so that interns will be available and that they can come in for training. So please, at the utmost, I understand you have stuff that your interns need to do, especially if they're doing block weeks, but just to save time for everybody, and it's once again a great way for them to network as well, is that we need all interns who are starting in the fall to be at that training. Okay, so please do your very best to get those interns here and do those different trainings when need be. Okay.
And for everyone in the room, when we're going through this, you work for a CHO, except for Kathy, but because she's with HMI, with United Way, who's a system administrator, but you're a CHO, so that's going to be your organization's reflected in here as CHO. So everywhere you see that, that's where you'll know that this is something that pertains to us.
And it's on here because that's how it's worded in the policy and procedure. So I'm going to use agency, DHO interchangeably. Okay, so the types of users. You have a volunteer, which these are types of users that are allowed within HMIS. A volunteer allows you to enter client data for shelter bed check-in and check-out only. So the next step up would be a case manager, which allows you to enter new clients, an entry and exit, data entry and editing of case notes, service transactions, and bed list check-in and check-out only. A CHO administrator allows you to access rights as a case manager plus access to provider profiles. So these are the different types of views that you would be able to see in the system. A system administrator allows you complete access to all data records within HMIS. So that would be my and Helen's level, and different within the continuum of care. The other lead agencies have system administrators as well. Any questions?
And what we are working on right now is making at least one person in your agency an agency admin. Agency admins do have the ability to reset a password. Yay. So y'all won't have to wait all on me. But we do know that we're just going to be giving one person access to an agency admin level. So if that agency admin is out, or you're just like, hey, I just want to talk to Helen today, or I just want to submit a ticket because I feel like it, you can definitely still do that. We're just going to try to make it a little easier for y'all if you get locked out. Okay.
All of our favorite data. So each agency must post a copy of the privacy statement at each intake desk or at a location where it is going to be visible to clients. You guys kind of have all been through this through the monitoring visits, so not much has changed there from what you've recently been through. You must have a copy of the HMIS privacy policy, which you can be able to provide to a client, whether that's a hard copy or an electronic copy. We know that PPI, personal protected information, must be protected. That was largely gone over in your monitoring checklist, which is one of the appendix of the policy and procedure, if anyone wants us to review that. And your data timeliness. So we ask, and it is in the policy and procedure, that all of the agencies be able to enter in data within 72 hours of meeting with the client. So here's where some changes have been made. So I listed exactly the section and the page where you're going to find this major change for the ROI section. So in the past, agencies have emailed the system admins, Helen, to let you know if a client had selected no for the ROI. Going forward, what's going to happen that if a client does not consent to the ROI, it is going to be the responsibility of the agency to lock down the client's information. And we will be providing a training on that very soon. We are in the process of working down the steps on how that is supposed to happen. So the ROI expires after 1 year and should be updated each year. So there are many ROIs in the system that are longer than 1 year. We're going to be sending out a report because according to the policy and procedure, no ROI should be longer than a year. Additionally, if a client revokes their ROI, which does happen, we see in HMIS a lot of times, a client could be at one agency and they decide that they're going to share their information, but then they seek services at a different agency and they choose no. The no always trumps, even if it's within the same calendar year. So at that point, once they select no, that they don't want to share their information, the agency has to secure any new client information within HMIS. Any questions about this?
as you go through, if you are a HUD-funded CoC and you see that one of your clients where you said yes, that the ROI has been taken away and you're not able to see information, call us and let us know. Because that's going to be one area where it could present problems. If you're ESG-funded or HUD-funded CoC, you have a specific client list that you're following in HMIS, following up with information. If their ROI ends up saying no and you're not able to access information, it should be for the information that you put in, but not able to access information, let us know, and we'll try to work that out with you.
My suggestion would be, after looking at the data for the entire continuum, would be that when you meet with a client and we're looking up their client record in front of you, if they have an open ROI, don't collect a new one. So they've already agreed that you can share their data, and if we're saying that it's within the year, they just signed one last month, you don't need to collect a new one. You can just let it ride until you're going to meet towards the end of their year. So that way, because there is a lot of back and forth with the system, what we want to do is kind of stop that from happening.
And we will go over when we have everything in place, because we want to test out this new ROI procedures. We all know the system can be very clunky, and we know that it takes a lot with an ROI, and we just want to make sure all of our bases are covered, because it takes that one lawyer who's coming out of law school who's like, oh, the ROI, and we just want to make sure that all of our I's are dotted, our T's are crossed, and we have everything protected for our clients. Because I know that if we were in that same boat, if we were homeless, I don't want my information shared if I told you not to share it. So we need to respect the rights of our clients. So we are going to show you in that training how to lock down information if they say no, and how to unlock it if they say yes. You can, if it's locked for another agency, how you unlock it if they say yes. Okay. This will be a new learning process. It is something new. There are going to be hiccups, but we hope that to the best of your ability, you're going to do what we need to do in order to be in compliance, so that if you are ever audited by HUD or a grantee, you are in the green. Okay. So, and we encourage you that during this process, that if you have questions, you do not need to suffer in silence. You need to pick up the phone and call us if you have a question.
The HMIS committee that we talked about in the beginning of the slide with the 4 continuums of care has gone back and forth largely on this issue. We did test the system to see what it would be like if we locked down the ROIs, and it largely affects reporting. It would largely affect any individual profiles that you would be able to see. So in order to comply with HUD and not have to lock down the entire system that way, this is the workaround. So a lot of the stuff on this slide is largely covered on the monitoring checklist. Other things that aren't on there are that reports generated by the agency or the HMIS lead agency, MACH. What ends up happening is that we cannot put any, well, we cannot share, ultimately what it's saying is that you cannot put PPI information with client ID, with a client ID. So in terms of the prioritization list, this is a big change, that we are unable to put the client's name next to the client ID, because if that list got out anywhere, someone would know and be able to piece that together. So technically, a client's first and last name is part of PPI information.
So use those client ID numbers.
Yes. Any reports pulled out of the system that you guys can pull as well need to be protected. Any personal identifying information needs to be removed from the report before you can share it. That would mean if you're going to a meeting, I would remove all the information before you're printing the report to share.
If you are using the prioritization list, which hopefully if you are ESG or CoC funded, you are using the prioritization list, and this has become a headache, please call us and let us know. This is something we've had to put in place to follow guidelines that HUD has let down. We don't want this to be a barrier to y'all being able to serve clients in a fast and efficient manner. So we've worked with specific organizations already. Melissa goes out and works with them to help identify a way where you can have names and information to help you with that list. So please let us know if it's becoming a barrier that with this change, and we'll do our best to accommodate what you need to make sure that no client gets left off or left out of possibly being able to find housing.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, too, guys, is that, I know that I've been working with Rock Hill a lot, is that, you may have, like, I know that Homeless No More has, a call center where you're doing VIs over the phone sometimes, or you're doing them in person. If you are not doing that ROI for that client, that client is not giving you permission to share your information to get housing. So if you're not updating that ROI in the system, that client is not being recognized as being needing housing. So please make sure that you double check to make sure you're putting that release of information in there. Remember, if you are doing a verbal consent release of information, you need to put your name down in the witness section. Okay? So please make sure that you are doing those ROIs, because that's a big, big thing that we're noticing, especially when it comes to the prioritization list.
So tech support, we're going to go over further later in this training about updates to MACH's website, but you can submit a ticket through the MACH's website. You can always call Helen or myself or send an email. We just ask that you not put any client identifying information within the email. And so the monitoring checklist that you've all gone through monitoring, the purpose of that is to make sure that each agency is within compliance for the policy and procedures. And then the next slide is just going to give you a list of the appendices. I'm saying that wrong, but through there. You're going to see that Appendix I is reserved. That's going to be for the ROI section, that once we work out exactly how that is going to be managed within the system, we will add that in. Any questions?
One thing about, and then we'll get into the other policies that, and Melissa will say this when we get to the ability to submit information through MACH's website, that will allow you to submit protected information. It's encrypted, the information allows you to submit that. Email, if you submit it, then it becomes your responsibility if it's personal protected information or personal health information, and that is your responsibility to make sure that's not on the email. But whenever we get to the ticketing system, you will be able to submit information through that. We're going to talk now about additional and other required policies, and these specifically relate to ESG funded and CoC funded programs. However, if you have adopted MACH's written standards, or you have an interest in becoming an ESG funded program or a CoC funded programs, these are required to be adopted by your agency and organization. Some are specific to emergency shelters, some are specific to CoC funded rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. We have gone over these in trainings before. We are obligated as the collaborative applicant for HUD to go over these annually. So that's one reason why we're going over these again. You have a page in the back. If you didn't pick it up, you can grab them off the back, and we'll make sure that these are provided to everyone who's on the who's accessing through the internet. But this gives you the details that's actually in the written standards for each one of the other policies that we'll be talking about. I'm going to go through some of these briefly, and then if you have questions, you can let me know. We're not going to go into details of case studies and things like that. We've done that in trainings before, which you all, most of the faces I see in here participated in those for case studies that we've done as it relates to some of these policies. Before I go there, I know on your agenda it says written standards. And I want to talk about that briefly, but not go through. Each one of these other required policies is in the written standards. And written standards is the document that oversees all that MACH and us as a continuum of care are required to do. So if you have not done so, please go and read the written standards on the website. It talks about everything from our prioritization policy to how to run different programs, to look at general information about the continuum and how we operate. So this is on the website. We're not going to go through this. We're going to just talk about the other required policies. But it is your responsibility as a HUD or ESG fund, a CoC or ESG funded organization to comply to all of the written standards that are here. The other thing that has been added that's also part of the written standards that we rolled out last year, and we'll be sending them out again shortly, is the coordinated entry system policy and procedures. So we'll be sending that out. We had, I think last year, that's what the whole training was about, was how we're doing coordinated entry, the process of going through diversion, then doing assessment referrals, and then providing access and services. So these are all available on the website for you to review. And if you receive federal funding through HUD, also if you receive funding from United Way as well, these are policies that you're expected to follow as it relates to the programs that you're running. So, so it says on the agenda the written standards. So I just went through those, but I just encourage you to read them and understand the information that's in there. That is where you'll find the prioritization policy. So that's where we have a lot of questions that come up. And the MACH policy committee is looking at the prioritization policy just to see if it's still working for the continuum. So you may get questions about that, specifically as it relates to rapid rehousing and how prioritization limits some of the work that people are able to do for rapid rehousing. So you'll hear more about that moving forward. Most of these you've heard. The first is the guidance for placement for transgender persons in single-sex emergency shelter and other facilities. The biggest piece of this policy is that it is imperative that the person access and is giving support based on their identified gender. So this is not based on what you think or based on what you view or see or based on any characteristics that you feel someone has. This is the client's choice as to the gender that they identify. And that is how they are designed to be treated. And it is your responsibility as an emergency, and the emergency shelters that we have within MACH do an incredible job of following this and already have systems in place to address this. But it is your responsibility to be able to provide safety concerns and to be able to provide privacy concerns for the individuals. If you are a weather-based shelter, in other words, you're only open during the winter, and you receive ESG and CoC funded resources or United Way funded resources, you still have to comply with this as it relates to warm weather or cold weather shelters. The next one is preventing involuntary separation. And this specifically is that based on family composition, this and the next one we're going to talk about, you're not able to separate a family based on the age and gender of the child who's under 18. Mostly this applies to shelters who work with females. Sometimes it relates to domestic violence shelters, but if you have a 15-year-old son, you are not able to separate the family based on how the son identifies in terms of providing access to those individuals. So that's the main thing for that. All reports for any of these, just to let you know, if there is non-compliance, if you find out, like let's say you make a referral to a shelter, or you make a referral to someone and you find out that they were turned away because one of these policies that we're talking about is violated, then you need to let me know or let someone within United Way who's a collaborative applicant know, and then it's our responsibility to follow up with that shelter to find out. If you make a referral, or if you get wind of something like this happening where a family's being separated, or someone's not being allowed to stay in a certain place because their gender identity, then let us know and we'll be following up with that information and work with the organization to do so. So that relates to all of these policies that we're talking about. The next is discrimination based on household composition. As we know, a family for a household is they define themselves. We don't define that it's mother, daughter, son, or mother, husband, spouse. Family composition is based on what they define themselves and present to you as. So household composition, you cannot discriminate based on a group of people presenting a certain way. So just keep that in mind as you're looking for it, and you cannot, based on any of the sexuality, perceived sexual orientation, marital status, or gender of the household composition as well. So there can be no discrimination based on how the family presents itself. And I've seen from the monitoring that we do that you have all kinds of families that or households that are being served by the continuum, and it seems like everyone does a great job of respecting individuals and following the household composition and following that. So, and if y'all have any questions, you can let me know as I go through here. The next one is McKinney-Vento, and this is something that that we don't, I think, I didn't know a lot about until we really started presenting on this. On your handout, there's a lot more information that includes required pieces of intake that you're supposed to do, such as current school, the disabilities of the family's children, involvement in any special programs. There are things that you have to do based on intake if you are serving a child that is in a school system. The first thing and most important thing is you are required, based on school-age children, to identify the McKinney-Vento coordinator. So if a family comes to your shelter, enters your program, within 24 hours, you need to let the McKinney-Vento coordinator in that county or the county that they came from, it's up to the child then to determine, let them know that you're providing services to that family and to that child. If it's preschool age, then you let Head Start know within 24 hours of residing on the property where they present. So this is a responsibility when they come in. There's so many things to do, but you do have to let the McKinney-Vento coordinator know about that information. You may not restrict the geographic choice of schools. So if someone comes into your program and that is where you need to be working with a McKinney-Vento coordinator to make reasonable accommodations for the child to get to the school of their choice or based on where the school has already been attended. You cannot require the student to change schools based on what becomes convenient to your program. It has to be based on what the student identifies and the family identifies with the school that the student would like to be a part of. You have to provide, even as the program, the McKinney-Vento coordinator can help you with this, but provide written and educational information on the student's rights. So you'll be providing that information. And then there's certain questions we talk about asking at intake. And then you will need to get a release of information to make sure that you can communicate certain information with the McKinney-Vento coordinator. If they deny you access to contact with the McKinney-Vento coordinator, then obviously within 24 hours you can't contact the McKinney-Vento because they determine their own privacy. It's your responsibility to document that information and show that they decline to have any information communicated with the coordinator. And then you cannot deny residency based to a family based on the child's after-school activity. So if there's certain things that will prevent the school, like if you have certain curfew hours that a child has to be in, and they are engaged in activities that are productive for them based on after-school experiences, then those students need to be allowed to do those activities. And finally is there's someone at your agency that has to be designated for contact for school communications. So it can be the same person, it can be a case manager, but when you communicate that information to the McKinney-Vento coordinator, to the school system that they're a part of, it's your responsibility to let the school know who within your agency receives contacts as it relates to situations that school is working with. Like I said, there's more detail in the McKinney-Vento education policy, so I encourage you to take a look at that, especially if you serve families, to follow that information. The next, we're going to go through a couple of things that were just added last year, 2018. We had to be compliant with CPD 1701. That doesn't probably mean anything to you. For us, it was a big headache to make sure that all of our written standards, all of our policies and procedures were in compliance with CPD 1701. And a lot of that is following things that really any business should be responsible for in terms of offering equal services based on limited English proficiency. We'll talk a little bit about hearing impaired for those with vision deficiencies in a second. But it's your responsibility as an organization to be able to provide certain services to individuals. If they come in to your office and they are speak a different language than English, it is still your responsibility to be able to provide a coordinated entry system and coordinated entry process for them and for that individual. There's a couple of tools that are available. We have translated some of the information. I believe we've translated it based on 4 different languages: French, Spanish, Thai, only because Karina, who y'all probably know, went there, and she went ahead and made sure that Google Translate was at least reasonably effective. And there was one other that I can't remember at the time. What's that?
Mandarin Chinese?
It may be. I'm not sure. It's based on when we get calls. If you have someone come in and present and are looking for services and you need support, that is what we as at the United Way as a Collaborative African are responsible to help you with. We help guide you through the process of creating, identifying resources for translation services and identifying ways to adapt either the phase 1 assessment, which is the first entry assessment, or the VI-SPDAT. So if you have someone that you need to get a VI-SPDAT on and need it translated into a language, let us know when we can provide support with doing that. However, as an organization in general, you should be able to provide some of these basic services to individuals to be able to address limited English proficiency. The next one is persons who are blind or low vision or hearing impaired. There's a number of resources that are available. We had this come up not too terribly long ago with someone who presented and had tons of support from the community to be able to provide assistance to that individual. One thing I want to make clear is that this may take time. If someone walks in, you can say, we're going to need time to be able to get this information done, but it has to be done within a reasonable time. And then you can work with me or work with us in order to provide that. Hopefully you're able to get certain things on hand if you find it, things that you're using regularly. Once we create it once, then we'll have information that we can disseminate widely. I think that word was used right. I don't know. So large print or things in Braille need to be available for you. Obviously, that would include the release of information, the privacy statement, things like that. As you encounter someone who has limited vision or low vision or is blind, and if you have these materials, great. If not, let us know and we'll work with developing a process to get this. We do not want anyone to not be able to get services because they're presenting with low vision or being blind or with hearing impaired. The other is, go up one more. The other is the telecommunication relay services. Anyone use that? And here I know when we've done the trainings before, there are people who have. So this helps communicate with individuals who are hearing impaired. So we have a resource sheet on our website for each one of these that you can go to. As translation services, has individuals who can do sign language, and also the resource for 711. Just like if you're going to dig 811, you call information. If you have an emergency, you call 911. If you need assistance with individuals you're communicating with that are hearing impaired, you can use 711, dial that number, and they'll go through the process of helping you work through that with an individual. And the last thing that we're going to talk about, and this is also something that has a lot more information in the handout than what is in here. If we get a lot of questions about, for someone fleeing domestic violence, if I'm not a DV shelter, what are my responsibilities? So regardless of whether you're a DV shelter or not, this outlines the responsibilities that you have in terms of working with individuals who are fleeing domestic violence. So I encourage you to read through this. This, just like everything else, is protections. You can't deny any assistance based on sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation. Specifically, if you have a male who's fleeing domestic violence, they are given the same opportunity and resources as a female who's fleeing domestic violence. That's typically what comes up the most. Also, with disability or age for someone who's fleeing domestic violence, they need to have equal access to services. And you are not able to deny admission. If you came to the fair housing training, we talked a lot about how someone who is fleeing domestic violence or who is in a domestic violence situation faces eviction, because some, some leases have information in it that if the police are called out so many times that it's grounds for eviction. Well, you cannot evict someone based on fair housing because they have called the police due to a domestic violence situation. So make sure to be aware of that and look at information. And you cannot have termination from emergency shelter only on the basis that the individual is a victim of domestic violence. If you have complications with the perpetrator, then you need to work with local law enforcement to provide accommodations, but that someone cannot be terminated from services because they are fleeing or because someone is trying to perpetrate a crime on them. So that's all the additional policies that we have. Any questions about those? That's really good.
So this is, you're all being told, so we don't want to hear, well, I didn't know that.
So, and if you have situations that come up, please let us know. We want to make sure that, I say this all the time, and I'm not sure whether people believe me or not, but we don't want any policies to get in the way of people being able to provide housing. However, policies have to be followed. So if you find that there's something that we talk about and you're just like, I'm not sure how that's going to work for us, then please come and talk to me, because the biggest thing is about getting people housed and housed quickly and providing services to individuals who need it. So please, if you find anything as it relates to this and you want to talk to me about it, you're thinking about applying for ESG funding and you're not sure how it's going to work with your specific program, give me a call and we can talk about it. We can talk with HUD, we can talk to OEO here in the state to be able to do some of that. So just let us know before you say, oh, well, we can't provide housing or can't be CoC funded because our program's structured this way, then please give me a call and we can work through that and try to figure out ways to make sure to provide accommodations. I'm going to turn it over to Helen, who's going to talk a lot about chronic homelessness, talk a little bit about time an individual's experiencing homelessness, and then from there, Melissa will talk about the prioritization report and go through the cognitive forms. So, and we'll give you a snapshot, or at least information about a PIP report that we're going to be hopefully releasing this week, and we'll talk about that soon. So, Helen?
Alrighty. So we are going to talk about time homelessness and how we're going to make sure we're following that. We've noticed a lot especially when we're coming through the prioritization report, is that a lot of our folks are not being considered as chronically homeless, and we do know that some housing providers, that is a stipulation in order for them to get services with that provider. And it is due to mistakes made in HMIS, because there is a certain formula that goes along with certain reports that you have to submit with various grants that you have to provide. So if you do like your APR or things like that, if you don't do the time homelessness correctly, then unfortunately you're not getting credit and that person is not seen as having correct time of homelessness. Okay, one major thing that we are seeing, I'm going to pull up the warming center in Rock Hill. Now, a lot of times, I know that everybody's so busy. I know that you have between 10, 20, 30 clients on your caseload. And sometimes you're just so busy trying to do a lot of things at one time, is that sometimes things get away from you. One of those things is when you're going into a profile and you're automatically seeing, oh, those questions are already answered. You're skipping them and you're going down to the next part. Y'all cannot do that, guys. You are gypping yourself out and your clients out of their true time homelessness. So let me give you an example. So let's say our client goes into this warming center that we have right here. So the night before our client went into the warming center, they were on the streets. So my housing status should be what? Place not meant for habitation. And then, of course, we fill out the correct information about what is the length of time homelessness, how many times have they been homeless, what is the total number of months homelessness. Okay, and that's great, but a lot of people are skipping over those sections because they're like, oh, it's already done. No, you have to walk through that with the client to make sure that it is reflecting what currently is going on with the client. That includes income, non-cash benefits as well. Don't just skip over it because you see an answer there. Take the time to go through it with the client. One other thing that we've been seeing is that, so we do know that some agencies have different programs and they transition to different programs. So we have some that you start out in emergency, then you go to transitional, and then you go to permanent, or you have various levels of emergency shelter based on their progression through the program. So let's say that this client is, let's say that Bethel Warming Center has a transitional housing program. So when that case manager goes to do an entry-exit for the transitional housing program, do they keep this at place not meant for habitation?
I'm going to guess no.
The answer is no. Because if we think about this, if the client progressed to my next program, where did they stay last night? In the other program. So I would change this to emergency shelter. So it's all about where they stayed last night. Because if you're not changing this, it can't affect your reports that you're doing. So you have to be very careful with this section and really think about, well, where did my client stay last night? Well, if they're progressing through your program, they were in emergency shelter last night. Then you change all this information. So if they were in there a month, you would put they were in emergency shelter for a month. And then you go through that process whenever they enter that new program. Okay? I cannot stress how big a deal this is right here. Is that we're not just skipping over those questions because they're already answered, but really taking the time and think about this. If you were a client, do you want that case manager taking the time to make sure and knowing your story of homelessness? And most of y'all are going to answer yes. So make sure you're taking that time with your client. Okay? And I know this section can be very difficult because, and this is going to be a more involved dialogue with the client. Well, tell me about, your situation of homelessness. And, when I was a case manager, I had to do a timeline with my clients. And I had to say, okay, well, tell me about the first time you were homeless. And then we would walk through the process together. Not only are you trying to get a picture of their homeless status, but you're getting to know them on a personal level. You're going to find out a lot about that client. Did they have a tragedy that happened that's affecting their homelessness? Was it substance abuse? And you're going to find out a lot that's going to help you with that case management if you're taking the time with this client to see what's going on with their homeless situation. Okay? Now, one of those things is that I get this question a lot is, well, what counts as time homelessness and what does not count? And my computer is frozen. Okay. The chart that we have for you in the back, we are going to post it on the MACH website, but if you need it in a pinch, you can just type in HUD chronically homeless flow chart. Okay? So when you're having this dialogue with the client, you're trying to figure out, well, what counts as time homelessness, what does not count. All right. So, of course, with the chronic homeless status, you're going to see the stuff about disability. So remember, HMIS sits there and it actually calculates it for you on your report. So you don't have to sit there and that's why we took WellSky took away that question, is the client chronically homeless or not? As long as you're answering the disability section correctly, and you're answering those the homeless status questions correctly, it's automatically going to calculate it for you. So you're not going to need that extra question, is this client chronically homeless or not? Okay? So there's two main things that we're looking for when we're talking about episodes of homelessness. So if we do know that, especially with like maybe our youth, they have friends, the friend says, oh, you can come stay on my couch for a couple of nights. Okay? Well, if we all look on the flow chart, how many nights can that client stay on somebody's couch and it doesn't separate their times homelessness? Anybody? Less than 7 days. Kim, you get a cup. Woo! So yes, so if a client is staying with a friend for less than 7 nights, that time that they are there does count as time homelessness. So that's not going to separate your number of times that they were homeless. It's just 1 stint of homelessness. Okay? And that could mean if Joe goes to friend A's house for 3 nights, stays in Finley Park 1 night, then goes to another friend's house for 3 nights, all that time can count as time homelessness. And that is 1 episode of homelessness. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that?
No question.
Okay, awesome. Okay. So the next part is talking about institutions, because that's a big one as well. What we have to do is, especially when we have shelters coming on board, we have certain questions that we have to ask them based on HUD standards. More than 75% of your clients, if you are on HMIS, y'all have relayed to us that over 75% of your clients are coming straight from a truly homeless situation. Okay? So that's what it used to be. Sometimes we can't take shelters because they get them straight out of the prison system, so on and so forth. So when we're talking about institutional stays, okay, how long can a person stay in an institution? So that includes jail or prison, rehab, hospitals, anything like that. It does not count against their time homelessness. Oh, wait, Ken. First of all, thought first. Less than 90 days. Woo! Ursula gets the cup.
It's the last up, so probably nobody will answer the question. It's all right. I can give you mine, girl.
Nobody wants that. No thanks, cup. All right. So if you have a client who is, let's say that they picked up at CPD for trespassing because they're staying on somebody's porch, but they're only going to give them a month in jail. Let's say that, okay? So if they're in jail for a month, because it's less than 90 days, that time spent in jail or prison can count as time homelessness. Okay? So, once again, it's all about the story. It's all about the person's background. So having that dialogue will really help trying to figure out what's going on. Once again, if you're finding out that client has that on their record, what could you do to help them? If you see that they have something on their record. Homeless court. Homeless court. See, once again, it's helping with your case management. Okay? So, if they are in, let's say that they go to rehab for 90 days, or let's say 91 days, you split up that time homelessness. That's 2 episodes of homelessness. So if they were at transition, and transitions referred to Morris Village, that person was there for like 90, 91 days, and then went back to transitions, then that is 2 episodes of homelessness. Okay? Can you say that again, please? Yeah. So a client starts out, they're working with the case managers at transition. Transition refers them to Morris Village, which is usually a 90-day break. So they go to Morris Village as an institutional stay. So if they're there for 90 days, whenever they get back out, let's say they go back to transitions to help get more help for their homeless status, then that would be 2 episodes of homelessness because that time did not count because it's over 90 days. Okay? Well, once again, if it's less, then that time in Morris Village could count if it's less than 90 days. And it's one episode of homelessness. Okay? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to my folks online?
I believe so.
Okay.
No one has said different.
Nobody has said anything.
Nobody's still online.
Probably.
What's it? 20?
So I guess because we're going to make sure that everybody's paying attention right now, I guess I need to give another code word for those people who are still on. So what's your code word? I'll let y'all make it up. Birthday. Okay, we'll do birthday. All right, so birthday will be our second code word to make sure people are paying attention. All right, so another question that we get with time homelessness is about, well, what if they are, you're looking at your episodes of homelessness, and that first episode is only for 2 days, okay? Our rule of thumb is rounded up to 1 month, okay? So you have, if they're homeless for 2 days, we just say rounded up to 1 month, because in the system it'll say 1 month or first time homeless, okay? This way it helps us distinguish about how long they were homeless, okay? So if they were homeless for 2 days in this episode, and 15 days in this episode, just go ahead and round those up. 1 plus 1 is what? 2. Y'all always look at me like that's a trick question.
You have a question online.
Okay.
If someone is living in a vehicle, that would count as not meant for habitation, right?
Correct. Yes. So place is not meant for habitation. It would be anything that ranges from a car, the park, under a bridge, even like an abandoned warehouse, even a house that does not have electricity or water. So it is what they say is beyond repair. Okay? So if you have, if you see that there's some units that are kind of shut down, they turn out all the lights and power, not just because they didn't pay a bill, you know, make sure we differentiate that. Not because Dominion turned off their electricity just for until the bill is paid. We're talking about it's completely shut off and they're just using that as kind of a hideaway. Then that is also a place not meant for habitation. Now, another question we do get that I see some people get confused on is a safe haven. Yes, my mom's house is a safe haven. Okay, so I can get good food and I can sleep, you know, away from it all. But a safe haven is not your mama's house. Okay? Repeat that. Safe haven is not your mama's house. It is a specific emergency shelter designed for folks who have a serious and persistent mental illness. We only have one in the state, and that's in Greenville. So the likelihood you're going to get somebody coming from a safe haven is very slim to none. Okay, so just be careful when you're looking at that. If you are confused, like if you're doing that timeline with that client, and you say, gosh, I can't remember what St. Lawrence place identifies as. Okay? What we'll do is I'll try to put a guide online as well to let you know what is an emergency shelter and what is transitional housing. So as you're having this dialogue with the client, you can differentiate the two as well.
Helen,
Yes.
someone is saying they can't hear you. You might have to stay closer to the microphone.
Okay.
Can you hear Helen now?
Hello. Are you doing pretty loud? I'm surprised. And he's like, yeah, she really is.
Most surprising thing I've heard today is somebody can hear Helen.
My teacher voice, Andy. Come on now. All right. Any other questions about time homeless? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right.
I do want to say that, I know Helen said it, but this is so important for organizations who run permanent supportive housing programs. Because they are trying to identify clients to get in their units, and it is so much extra work for them to have to go in and verify homeless, length of time homeless, and things like that. If this is done, and if it's not done, I guarantee you, when they go through the prioritization list, you are removing a chance for someone to get housed. So do your best to make sure that this information is updated and accurate as possible, because it can only be determined based on what's in HMIS, and if it's not in HMIS, then whenever someone's looking for someone who's chronically homeless, they're going to skip right over that individual because they're not eligible for the program. So doing this is vitally important for clients that you work with. If not, you're essentially removing a chance for them to get housed.
Also, one more thing I forgot to put in my notes that we do need to bring up is housing move-in dates. Guys, we cannot stress this enough too, is that whether you are putting somebody into a unit or you, like, they're leaving, like, let's say Miriam has a client who's moving into with rapid rehousing, okay? We need to back each other up when it comes to housing moving dates because we're all so busy and we are human and we make mistakes. So let's say that Miriam has somebody who's going and Jamie is housing that person. Not only does Miriam need to put in the housing move-in date, not the date that they started the paperwork, but the night that they stayed in their actual residence. Jamie and Miriam need to both make sure that that housing move-in date is correct. Because that is something else that's helping us with reports. We're looking to see how many people are actually housed, and it's also a piece that Melissa uses for the prioritization report. Please make sure that when it comes to rapid rehousing, your entry date is the date that you can start the paperwork. But it is your responsibility to put the housing move-in date because on some reports, those are the only people that are pulling. Okay? So please make sure you are doing that. Permanent supportive housing folks. Your entry date is the date that they stay in that unit. Okay? You do not put their entry date as the day they start paperwork. So it's different between rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing.
And so the place that they stayed, if they were, let's say, at transition the night before, is their date, like if it's May 1st, if we move the person May 2nd, was their exit date May 1st on the other or May 2nd?
So, all right, so let's
Same date or the day before?
So technically, if we're doing this correctly, so let's say that this client is moving into your unit. Miriam would know that that client is moving into your unit. She would exit them that morning, and then you would put them in that same day.
Okay.
So if they're exiting May 1st morning, you put May 1st afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if not, it appears that they return to homelessness.
Yeah.
Just in that one day because they were exited from a program on one day and then the next day they were enrolled in another program. So it looks like that they return to homeless if they're not.
Yeah.
Now, granted, when you're looking at system performance measures, it's either going to be length of time homeless or return to homeless that we're going to get deemed one or the other, but it's important to have it accurate.
Any questions? All right. All right, so Melissa's going to talk about the prioritization report.
On the slide is the link, oh, not this yet. First, on the slide is the link to, the email. Okay. We went over this briefly at a mock meeting, but you all should have been sent out a copy of how to open the encrypted email. So to comply with HUD standards, we are sending out the prioritization report over the internet, which means it should be encrypted. So we encrypt it. They are instructions. You're going to get the email. If you forward an email and you weren't on the original receipt of who the email is going to go to, it won't open for you. So you should send Kathy or myself an email, say you didn't get the prioritization report. Can you please send it to me? So that's one of the key parts of the of encrypting a document is that unintended recipients cannot open it. So how to open it? When you come, all right, can you scroll down a little bit? When it comes to you, this is how to encrypt an email. What do you do when you receive an encrypted email? Scroll down a little bit more. It's going to look like this to you. You're going to want to hit read the message. When you do that, it's going to give you two choices on how you're going to read the message. The easiest would be to get a one-time passcode. So you select on that. I believe if you scroll down, these are some directions. It's going to then send a separate email to the same email address the encrypted message was sent to. You're going to take the code out of that, put it into the original email message because the box is going to pop up. And then when you do that, it's going to open the attachment. Now, there are a lot of issues that come with that. So if your computer is not current, meaning your security systems are out of date or anything, you may have an issue with that. So you can call me, you can send me a screenshot. I can tell you if it's an issue with the email or if you're going to have to reach out to your tech people and ask them to update things on your end. But once you put in the password, you should be able to right-click on the document and download. You want to download it to your computer, and then it will be there, and you won't have to keep referring back to the email. Once that happens, you should delete the email from your inbox. If you need it again, you can always email myself or Kathy, and we can send it back out to you. So if you download it, then you have the option of arranging it in any way you want. The document then becomes your own, and you can edit it. Any questions about it?
When you download the document, every time you open it, will it still ask you for the password?
No. So once the encrypted email comes to you and you download it, the document now belongs to you.
Okay.
So it should be saved somewhere on your computer. I would remind you, though, that when the new prioritization report comes out, so 2 are released per month, you should probably delete the old one. So now we can go to the prioritization report. So when you get the prioritization report, there are going to be 2 tabs. The first is the dashboard. This is created just kind of as important reminders and visual aids. So the actual report is located at the bottom on the second tab. This is the actual prioritization report that's sorted and formatted correctly. So switch back to the dashboard, please. We'll go through this. So each client has been provided a status after Kathy's provided some feedback. So there are a lot of clients who either do not have an ROI, have an expired ROI, which would mean that they should technically be removed off the prioritization report because their information, we don't have a document stating that it can be shared. So this is a big issue. So, but because it's going to remove 194 people off of the list, we've chosen to keep them on in hopes that you guys are looking at this saying, we need to update these ROIs. So that's why it's being pointed out to you. So there are a large majority of individuals with VIs that are over 6 months old and expired ROIs. Then on this month, I'm just giving you guys some visual aids of how many VIs per county, how many veterans in each county, and then the client status, so you can see that like big chunk of yellow are clients that do not have ROIs right now, have not had a VI in the last 6 months. There are a bunch that are current this month, so there is work being done. Kathy asked me to put all the frequent offenders on the list. There are 30 total. As of the last, at the beginning of the month, 10 of them actually had their profiles filled out, so that was great. We still have 20 left to go. And then all the way to the right, you'll see I just kind of gave you an idea of the average total months homeless and the average VI score. Just giving you guys some visual aids based on the data that we have.
Can you scroll to the left and down? Okay. I usually I try to be nice most of the time, but I personally think if you're a provider who is on HMIS in any of the county, specifically Aiken, in York, in Lexington, in Lancaster, that has 1 or fewer people, get the eyes on those individuals. We have rapid rehousing programs in our continuum that are unable to identify clients to house because they have to have a VI in order to house the individual. That's part of the policies and procedures that HUD sets down. We have specific programs that work outside of Richland County to house individuals, and they're having a terrible time identifying clients who are homeless in counties other than Richland County. So please, 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 if you have an emergency shelter in any of those counties, if you work with clients in any of those counties, get VIs on those individuals. If you need help in understanding the process of how to get a VI, let me know, let Kathy know, and we will make sure to come out and support the efforts to get VIs on those individuals. So my guess is there's more than one person in the majority of those counties who are experiencing homelessness, and my guess is there's more than 53 in York County who are experiencing homelessness based on all the data that we've seen. Please get VIs. It's just like not updating the information on the profile. It is essentially removing an opportunity for someone to get permanently housed by not completing the VI. So please do that. If you've done the phase 1 assessment and they are in your county, do a VI so we can make sure that everyone who's in the continuum has an equal opportunity to get the resources and services that are available. And if you need help, you don't know how to do it, you're scared to do it, whatever it may be, let us know and we will come out and do that. It's so critical that everyone gets a VI because right now we're having resources go unused because individuals don't have VIs outside of Richland County.
Mm-hmm. And another thing too is, once again, going back to that statement, don't just be like, oh, the question is answered. I've been working a lot with York County with the cash program and just saying, going through each of these individuals, and they're like, they haven't lived here in over 5 years, or I've never even heard of that person. And then when we go to look at services and, entry exits, they're currently at, a shelter down here in Columbia, or they're in Aiken. So there's a question that says, county of current location or something like that. You need to make sure it's updated. So if you have somebody who is coming from Aiken to Columbia, you need to change that to say, this is what's currently going on with the client. So this way, this could help make sure that everybody is evenly distributed, because that's another error that we are seeing with this report.
Let's go back to your conversation before. Does everyone know how to sort and filter on Excel? If you don't, I can show you how to add in the filter features, but this can be beneficial to show you if you wanted to sort by county and status. So let's say that you wanted to know who in your area needs an ROI. You could sort that and it would tell you. So you would, as Helen's doing it, so no ROI, and then you could go further down the list because it's a very long list. So when I pull this report out of HMIS, it is a lot of data. I'm talking like over 30,000 rows of data. So multiple clients, lots of data that's being cleaned up. So one of the first things, the report is going to be sorted by most current time seen. So if they have an ROI, that's the most recent in the system, but they selected no, they're being deleted off the report. So if you want to know if your client is not on the report, check to see if they have an open ROI. Unless they've selected yes or it is blank, they will be removed off the list based on policy and procedure.
Melissa, we have a question.
Sure.
Ms. Andy said, if the head of household passes away, do we have to do all of the initial paperwork again with the spouse and open a new case? This is the question for you. The answer is yes, because when you redo that VI, there are going to be questions that are going to change based on that traumatic experience for the client. So that actually could make, the VI go higher, if that happens. So yes, always, if there is a change, like for example, let's say that a traumatic event happens. This has been another question that's come up a lot. Well, what if I get a referral and I have a person who has a 2? Well, from what I'm hearing them say is that, they have been hospitalized, they have been going to the ambulance 3 or 4 times in the past 6 months. If you're going to have to be walking very close line with this, is that if you know that there's stuff going on or that there's been a traumatic experience and change of life with the client, then we need to make sure that's reflected in the VI by doing a separate VI. This also makes, you need to kind of figure out, well, what's kind of going on with the client in terms of household. So if they are initially a household, of course, you're going to do a family VI. Well, then let's say that the husband and wife separate and the husband is going to transitions. Well, then we're going to need to do the single VI on them because it's going to be separate. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay.
Does anybody have any more questions about the prioritization list or how it's sorted, the status entered in, anything about that? So if you have a client who's on the list and needs to be housed, if you come across the status that's saying they don't have an ROI, please collect it. Update the system with it.
All right.
Oh, me again.
Congratulations.
Well, it's both of us. Or no, the mock pit report. Just kidding.
Okay. So, as you all know, in January, we completed the pit report. The state always releases its a report that usually comes out later. This year, we're anticipating it towards the end of July. But I've gotten a lot of feedback, and the feedback is kind of that everyone would like to know the Midlands numbers prior to like the middle of the year. So once we submitted the data to HUD, which was at the end of May, the end of April, we are in May, I used the data to create our own pit report. So that will be released Wednesday. It's going to go to a data evaluation committee to be reviewed, and then Friday it's going to go to the mock board, and then I am thinking after that it will be sent out and available on the website.
And so the one for the state will have more of like analysis, like what is contributing to homelessness, blah, blah, blah. This is just a quick snapshot to help satisfy those who need it for grant submissions and things like that.
Yes. So in all of these numbers will be represented in the statewide report. However, this is just I wanted to keep it less than 10 pages. It's just going to give you an overview idea of what the pit report calculated, some key findings, things of that nature.
All right. Last thing, and then we'll take some more questions. All right, so we, with the help of our friend Taylor here at United Way, we have come up with a great little form that is going to help us keep everything nice, neat, and organized, because that is our goal this year. So hopefully some people who've had experience with Cognito forms, they're very simple to use. So we're just going to kind of walk you through how to use a Cognito form, when do I use a Cognito form, and things of that nature. And like I said, it's super easy to use. Don't freak out if you're not computer savvy. Even though I love getting your emails to get like password resets, this just makes it nice and streamlined that if I'm out of the office or working in Rock Hill, Melissa can pick it up and reset your password. Okay, so the Cognito form is going to look just like this. Like whenever you log on to the link, we'll have the link posted in numerous spots. And Melissa kind of walked through where these different Cognito forms can be accessed onto the mock website. But we're just going to give you a general overview of what it pertains to. So of course you're going to fill in your name. You can put your email address. Ooh, probably helpful to put the right email address. I'm going to put my cell phone number, okay? So wherever you see little asterisks right here, that means it is mandatory information, okay? So here are the different things that you can use Cognito to send us. Make a client assistance referral. So this is all about, getting all the pieces of information together for coordinated entry. So down here, you have access to your different forms. So you don't have to say, oh man, where is that form located? Everything is right here for you. So like your ROI form, your referral form, your 2 VIs, and then when you're done, you can actually come down here and upload the files to the form, and then that way you don't have to send a separate email. Everything is put onto this form, and I forgot who said it earlier, but this is encrypted, so the vital information is protected whenever you send it to us. Just be on the lookout that if you're putting a name in there and you already have an HMIS profile, still use a good practice of putting that ID number in there, because, we want to keep everything as safe as possible.
So if you scan a VIN and upload it through here, we will load the information in HMIS on the client. Well, I need obviously the client ID, things like that. But you can send us the information and we'll make sure it gets on HMIS. If we have outreach workers that may be able to do the information and not be able to do it electronically. So if you get paper, scan it in, you can upload it to us through this and we'll make sure it gets in HMIS.
And that's mostly, and I'm just going to put in a little side note in, is that this is most, like Amy said, on a very rare basis that we need to try to get this in, or there's no access to HMIS, or we have an agency that is not HMIS trained yet, or their person who, it's like a volunteer that does their data entry that's been trained, they're not there for the week due to vacation, then you can send it to us. But if you have HMIS accessibility, please, we help you, you help us, scratch each other's back, and put that information in if necessary. Yes, exactly. Okay. So we do have an actual youth referral form as well. It's very similar to the one we were just on. The only difference is that we have the youth referral form and the youth VI available for your accessibility right here. Okay. With each of these, you're going to see any additional information. So please give us some narrative if you feel like something was not covered in the forms that we gave you. Okay. All right. So when new folks are getting certified through the VI training and things of that nature, you have been submitting it through a Google form. Google doesn't always tell me, like, whenever somebody has submitted their final completed test client for all the different VIs and the referral form. So this way it's going to give me a clear pop-up that says, hey, Ursula, she completed all of her VI training. She did her test client. Here's the ID number. Okay. So I'm just going to pick on Ursula because I just called her out. So Ursula would come in here and she would give me the client ID number of the test client that she did. There's code words for each of the videos that you watch on the MACH website. So you can come in here, put all your code words, and then you submit it, and then I can check it to make sure everything looks good, and then I can have your certificate ready to print for you. Okay. So hopefully most of y'all in here are already certified on VIs in the referral form, but if you're not and you need an extra credit hour, go ahead and get certified in all 3 of the VIs and the referral form so you can get another training credit hour.
Yay!
Yay!
I might do it anyway.
God, Andy. All right. I'm going to let Melissa take the data and research request form because that's her 3-ring circus that she deals with. So,
well, it's as simple as it was on the website, except it's all right here for you. If we scroll down a little bit, the link directly to the form you need to fill out is on here, but also a table. If you're not a MACH member, we are going to start charging for some requests. Most of you are MACH members, so it's not going to apply. But if you are looking for research on something and it's data, they all go to Andy. If he approves the request, it'll get sent to me and we'll start working on it. But it's nothing different except that if you're a non-MACH member, we're going to start charging for requests.
And that doesn't mean that, hey, Melissa, can you show me how to run the client served report? That's That's not what we mean.
Exactly.
This is more of a customized assessment that you need specifically for your agency. So if your agency has specific research questions that you're giving to the clients at intake, and that you need a separate report because no other report that we have is going to do that, that's what we're discussing when it comes to these types of reports.
Or we have people request a number of individuals who are in HMIS or on Medicaid. So we get a lot of requests to do things that you wouldn't think that we get from people outside of MOC, but also within MOC. So, since all of you are on HMIS, you know how fun it is to navigate HMIS. When you're trying to get information out of it, it takes a while. So we're trying to be respectful of that. But we want MOC members, if you have requests for information that will help you do a better job with your program, please let us know. We want to provide that information to you as a resource.
All right. The next thing you can use this for is MOC membership. So I'm going to let Andy discuss MOC membership because he's the
yeah, well, hopefully everyone's a member of MOC, but essentially annually MOC is renews membership. It's from January to December. You have to be a MOC member to get ESG funding and CoC funding, but you also get opportunity to trainings. We're starting to do a lot more trainings at CEUs, and will require fee to participate unless you're a MOC member. So hopefully we can expand. If you're not sure if you're a MOC member, your organization is one, please let me know, and I'll be happy to research that. But at any time throughout the year, you're welcome to submit that information.
Do you need to be an individual MOC member to do the CED?
You do not. The way we did it for the fair housing training was that each MOC member got 2 free entries in the training. So if CEUs come up, that's typically the way it'll be. You get 2 seats at the table, but if you have 3 people who then, one person would then have to pay, or the organization would have to pay for one person to participate.
All right. The next thing you can use our Cognito form is HMIS password resets. So this way you don't have to send me an email and you're like, sorry, forgot my password, Kim.
And
Y'all listen to her. You ought to hear us in the office. Hey, can you reset my password? It's not just y'all. We all do the same thing, not throw us under the bus.
So here you put whether you need to ask your password for the training site or the live site to get reset. And then if you need any information, there are, speaking of passwords, there is soon, it's going to be rolling out, is that you are going to have certain criteria that's more than what is needed right now for a password. Once again, don't write it on a sticky note and put it on your computer. So just be on the lookout for that as well. But if you need help, once we get the Cognito form, I'll send it back and I'll have your new password that you can log in.
Is it appropriate to have your system save the password for you?
no.
Mm-mm.
No.
Nope. All right. Next one is merging clients. It's my second most popular email that I get. So if you have duplicate profiles in the system, please once again use the rule of 2, because the 3 main pieces of information that you're seeing on that search section is name, social, and birthday. So as long as 2 of the 3 pieces match up identically, pretty much that's 98 to 99% the same person. So please go ahead and send me those ID numbers. I'll look at it, double check to make sure they are the same person, merge them, and of course, which number is always going to be the one we merge? I heard somebody say it. No, not the most recent. The oldest, because that's going to give us a quick glimpse that if we only see that a client only has 4 digits compared to 6, we can kind of figure out how long they've been getting services. So that's the rule with merging clients. The next one is new user requests. So please go, when you fill this out, if you're a manager and you're helping an intern or a new staff member fill this out, they need to put in 3 different dates and times they are available for training. I'll look at my schedule, see what works, and then once I get the cognito form, I'll respond back to say, yes, this date works for me. We'll choose this one. Here you'll have the upload to where you put the user agreement form. We have been kind of being lenient about waiting until the training site is done to get the user form. But from this point on, the user form has to be submitted when you request a new user license and training. So make sure that is taken care of. Okay. If anybody needs special accommodations for training, please make sure to put that into effect as well. So if you're in Aiken and you have the ability to do a webinar feature because you can't drive or whatever it may be, put that saying, I will need this as a webinar format. Okay, I would like more of our trainings to be in person, but unfortunately we do know, some cases that we can't always get up to Rock Hill or Aiken to do a training. So, just be wary of that. Report problem with HMIS system. Should got a lot of these on Friday. Of course, if something is wrong with HMIS, whether it's not letting you log on, the client you're working on seems funky, your report's not running right, you're getting error messages, please fill this out and submit it to us, and then that way we can look to see what's going on with the system. If we need more details like, hey, we worked it out, we can't figure out what you're talking about, we may respond back and say, can you please put a screenshot or something along those lines. But 9 times out of 10, Melissa and I can figure out the problem without having that. So just tell us your problem and what's going on, and we'll try to fix it to the best of our ability. Or we'll yell at Well Sky to get it figured out. All right, custom HMIS request. So if you need certain assessment questions that are not already in your assessment, or your call point feature, you want something different in there, then please go ahead and send the custom HMIS request of what you want. If there are certain answer choices you need, please include those as well. Because I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for when it comes to the answers, if you have specific ones. So if you're wanting this to be a pick list, you need to tell me that, give me the answer choices, or you can say this is just a fill in the blank question. So just be very specific about it so I can get it taken care of as soon as possible. Okay. And then the last one is submit a story for the MACH website. We know that, everybody has a good story, a success story that you can think of right now if we asked you to. And we want to post more of these success stories out there so that we can get our word and get our mission out there that, hey, we are helping these people by coming together as a continuum of care to really help these people get into housing. Or it could be a person that is still working on housing but has made a major transformation just in a short period of time. We want these stories to post on the website. So please make sure that that if you have a good story to tell of a client, send it to us so that we can post the good news. All right.
And as it relates to all of this, any of these that are submitted, it does create a ticket for us, and we're going to start monitoring how quickly are we responding, are things being closed out, are issues being handled, because, we get calls sometimes. It's generally people calling saying, I've reached out to Andy and he hasn't gotten back in touch with me. Or it could be any of us. So we really hope you'll use the ticket system, because then we can start really looking internally. Are we providing the type service that you deserve as a user of HMIS and as a member of MACH? So we can look at the number of days it takes to follow up for each one. So if you send an email for things and we say, hey, will you please complete the form, cognito form, don't get mad at us, just until you get in the habit of doing it, please do so.
Because I know I'm a bad person to I'll be driving or something at a stoplight and check my email real quick while I'm waiting and be like, oh, okay, they need a password reset. Well, it's already marked unread, and I forget to go back and actually, reply back to the email. So this is going to help prevent that, misconcentration.
So what we've gone ahead and did, so it's super easy for you guys, is the website. We've added a few things, but anywhere you would have gone, so for this adult and family referral form, it's just going to populate right to the Cognito form for you. So there is no additional thing you have to go to. Anything where you have the option to submit will populate to this form. The only thing you will have to do is once you get to the form, you'll have to again select what it is you're requesting. So back to the website, if you needed to go down and you decided you wanted to become a MACH member, it's going to populate right to the form. So, any questions?
Okay. So do we have any questions about anything that we have covered? I'm pretty sure your brain is stuffed with information now, and it might be you need to take a nap when you get back, or to release some information, and like, oh man, I forgot to ask this question. Please if you don't have any questions right now, please feel free to reach out to any one of us if you have additional questions, and then we can definitely answer them from there. But anybody online or anybody in-house, do you have a question that you need to, just a burning question you have about anything we've gone over? Or are you just ready to get out of here? All right, I think the word is getting out of here. All right, so we will post everything on the website. If you need anything else, just reach out and let us know.
What's wrong with Ritz Bits peanut butter crackers? Like, nobody ever takes them. They just sit there, and I feel so bad for them. So I feel bad. Like, everything's gone, and the Ritz Bits peanut butter crackers is just sitting there.
I can't have peanut butter.
So that could be it. That's it. Everyone's allergic to peanut butter.
Please make sure to sign in online or in the back. If you don't sign in, you don't sign here.
I'm ready for the rest.